Welcome to the Investor Empowerment Series radio show, empowering your real estate investing with techniques, opportunities, and information, minus the BS and sales pitches. Now, please welcome the host of the Investor Empowerment Series, Joe Mueller, from the Tough as Nails Investment Syndicate, Joe Mueller.
We're back again with the Investor Empowerment Series radio show. This is episode number 15, and this one's one of the best ones ever. Today's guest is my new BFF, which I'm going to confirm on the show, Stephen VanCauwenbergh out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Stephen started from nothing. He's a blue-collar guy and has built his way up to 135 units and multi-million dollars in wealth. We're going to talk about private money, we're going to talk about motivation, and we're going to talk about the importance of maintaining your reputation and credibility. You got to hear this episode. I love it. I love him. He's a great guy to have. He's written books. He's an entrepreneur. Don't miss it. Stay tuned. Stephen, thanks for coming on the show today. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself and your business?
Well, first of all, I am excited to be on here. This is my first legitimate interview with a video/audio. A little bit about myself. I'm just honored. I know when I told you that, I am honored to be interviewed by you because you're like my only fan out there. I got like two. It's my wife and you. Like when I send you stuff, you buy it for $5. I'm like, there's so many cheap people out there that they just want it free or they don't want to work at it. And that's right. When you ask me, I didn't have to think about it. I was like, absolutely. This guy, he's doing it. I'm pumped that you're doing a podcast because you're going to reach someone. You're going to say the one thing at the one time that's going to pump somebody up or get it done or make that call. And their life's going to change forever. And then you'll be at a bar at a nightclub and someone will roll up to you. Joe, you changed my life.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's true. You never know when you're going to get that one thing. But anyway,
let's talk about me following you because there's a reason. I mean, you're bringing it out there and you're putting like the real information that people need to hear on the radio waves. I mean, you've got experience. You've got people that are coming on your show you've got one guy that's got like 500 properties you've interviewed before. I mean, that's just crazy stuff. And yourself, I mean, I know you have a large number of units and we're going to talk about that today. But I mean, how can I go wrong by following somebody like you? That's what I figure. So.
Yeah, I mean, that dude's in my market. He's like 10 years ahead of me. I think he's like about 50 or so.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much from him. Like,
sure.
He one time I was in his office and I was like, I got this ghetto rental. I don't want to put central heat and air. He's like, oh, put wall heaters in there. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, at Home Depot, $60, you can get a 120 heater. You jump it off the outlet. Just that one thing, meeting with that one guy, one random thing at his office, now I can heat and air a ghetto crib real easy.
Right. Does that come with AC too?
No, that's just the heater. But you can go buy 100. You could do a whole house for like $600, $1,000 versus, putting in a new central heat and air, which is $5,000. I don't know what it is out there in Chi-Town, but
right. For
me, I can get a whole house done for under $1,000. Now, I'm away from these properties. This is 4 or 5 years ago.
Sure.
But I was just excited that he wanted to come on, and I think we learned something from him. Just motivation. Just like, dude, this guy did it. Why can't I do it? And he's not sexy. I look at this guy. I mean, I'm trying to be friends. He's no friends. He's just business. And so, right. But if this guy can do it, I mean, anyone can do it.
Sure. No, I love it. No, that's awesome. That's what it's all about, man. I mean, that's how you get started. And I think there's a lot of information that goes around out there that a newer investor gets sold on some type of product or a course or whatever. And then they're getting all excited. They show up for their course, for their boot camp for the weekend after they dished out some serious coin. And after their 2 or 3 days, it's like, okay, now what? I got to be an investor. But there are people out there that take the next step. And those are the people that have taken those steps, like you, are the ones that are going to truly push that investor to the next level. That's why it's so important to have somebody like you on my show.
You know what's so crazy is that there's two students. I don't really coach people. I just kind of got ushered into it. But there's two guys that I'm coaching right now that paid 30 grand to fortune builders or 40 grand. Mm-hmm. They got the course, and then and I can't clown or make fun of fortune builders. I mean, people are willing to pay $40,000 to learn, but then I think a lot of people just think that they spend 40 grand and they're going to be a millionaire tomorrow. Right. Like, it doesn't matter if you spend 40 or buy my little ghetto $20 book. You just have to do what it says. I mean, it's just that simple. But people think that spending 40 grand is going to get them it's just going to rain gold.
Right. The keys. When really in a market like you're in Oklahoma, $40,000, that can buy a whole house, right?
That can do well if you leverage that mess out.
Sure.
I mean, you could easily make that several $100,000. I mean, you can buy 2 ghetto rent houses for 40, 20 each, or you can buy one that would yield around $700 to $800 a month.
Sure.
And so in 3 to 5 years, you have your investment back, and you just did that real slow.
Right.
Let's
touch on real quick where I actually met you and where the experience between me engaging in the Savvy Landlord radio show began, which was actually last year at the Ohio Real Estate Investors Association convention.
Yeah, where I'm going back, Daddy. I booked my hotel.
All right, cool. Yeah, I'm going to be back there with Eddie, who also is. If there's only 2 fans, then there's definitely 3, because Eddie McCracken is a big fan of yours.
Well, I'm a fan of that dude just because of his name, McCracken. you got to get McCracken up in this mother.
Oh, he's going to love that you that you gave him a shout out.
He's all muscle bound,
He is. He is very much. If he's not working on properties, he's in the gym.
He's inspiring. I don't want that body, but it looks good.
Yeah, it does. It looks great.
It's like a little chub on me. Keeps me humble.
So we're at this convention, and we went, you and I, Eddie, I think it was about 40 investors in the room, and it was like a private session before the actual 3-day convention began. So I think it was like a Thursday, and it was like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday for the convention. And it was, I don't remember the exact name of it, but it was basically you had to have like 100 units or more or 50 units or more in order to be in this room with these people. And that convention in itself somewhat changed my whole outlook on what I've been doing in real estate. And I'm sure just like a power investor like you in the room, your insight, it took us a full day to pretty much get through the entire room of who everyone was, what they did, how they got where they started. And I walked out of there with Eddie, and I was like, man, we got to charge this up. I mean, like, there's people out there that there was one guy in that room, I think he had like 400 or 500 rentals, been doing it for like 10 years. He had like 2 staff members, and I'm like, how's that even possible?
How about that kid that had all those apartments?
Which one was that?
He was like on the back row, opposite of me. He was a young kid. That's all he did was apartments, and he had like several hundred units. Or how about the old guy that didn't know what to do to retire? I was like, let me buy those units off you, homie. That I was inspired when I left there. Right. I did feel, and then the guy I sat next to, did you know Bob?
I didn't know Bob, but I met Bob. Yeah, sure.
Okay, did you know he made $1 million through his IRA?
No.
Yeah, like I'm going to interview him for my podcast, but you should. The guy next to me, the one that emceed the whole thing, the guy that I
remember. Yeah.
He started out with $1,000 in his Roth IRA or his self-directed IRA and built it up to over $1 million. And he's just a regular guy. Like, he's just madly in love with IRAs and that type of traditional funding.
Sure.
I had dinner with him. He inspired me. I'm about to do my first private lend this week.
Oh, so you're going to be lending out of your IRA?
Yeah, out of my self-directed IRA.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell us about it?
Well, it's only $50K, so it's not like something Chicago can do. But basically, this is my whole thing of why I'm all into private money as of today, is that you have this money in this account from your job or wherever you put it in. If you put it in a Roth IRA, you're able to loan that money out at whatever terms you would like, and you get a return, and you don't have to pay tax on it. It goes right back into your IRA. It's a safe investment. For me, as a real estate investor, I know deals. I was looking at a property the other day. This guy said that he was going to flip it for 80. He got it under contract for 43. I drove over there. It needed about 10 or 15,000. He said 10 or 50. He said 10. I'm thinking 20 but he's a contractor. But I'm going to loan him $40,000, and he's going to make 20 grand off that transaction.
Right.
And then I'm going to make 4 points. I'll probably make $2,000 off of loaning him $40,000 in 6 months.
Perfect.
So, I mean, I've never done it before, but it's just money just sitting. I know it's just sitting in a bank account that you can't really make money off of stocks. You can, but you can't. And as a real estate, and I got this IRA because of my father-in-law is all into stocks. And if you're going to marry my wife, have some sort of retirement, I'm like, buddy, I got retirement. But, people just don't get it, right? So
Right.
I appeased him by now after 10 years, I got 50 grand in there. And I'm like, I told my wife, I'm pulling that deal. That's just a waste of time. So I flipped it over to a self-directed IRA. And then now I'm loaning it out for the first time. But this guy did the same thing, started maybe 10 years ago, maybe less. I mean, you should interview him. I don't know. I just know him enough, and I vetted him out. I asked several people, is this guy legit?
Right.
Because I don't want this dude on my radio show, and he's a charlatan. And he did. I called him out, too. I called him because I was trying to do a loan, and he knew exactly what I was talking about. He's a really good, cool guy, so I'll give you his number.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Or we'll see him next week or next month or 2 months, right? We'll see him anyway.
Yeah, I think it's in October, right?
November 1st.
A couple months away.
Yeah.
Who's your custodian for your IRA? Using that Innovations that you brought up?
No, I like him. That's so crazy you asked me that because I felt bad. I keep running into him, and I like him.
Right.
But, my little friend was down in Houston, uses SunWest Trust out of Nashville. And my friend's real cheap like me, and he's just like flat fee, no percentage. And so I get to call him and ask him questions like I called him over the weekend. I'm like, hey, how do I set this up? How do I start wiring money to people?
Right.
And he's like, just call SunWest. But I like that Mike guy, though. That's why I interviewed him. And another friend of mine, Ed O'Toole, right? Do you know him? He was in that meeting with us. He's from Springfield. He turned into a builder, but he uses Mike IRA Innovation. He's the one that turned me on to him.
Sure. No, I mean, that was an incredible podcast you recorded. I listened to that one twice, and I actually contacted Mike afterwards because I had some questions as well about how I can get I've got some money socked away in an annuity.
Cool.
I started a long time ago.
Good.
And I'm working on getting that transferred over right now because I finished listening to that podcast. I'm thinking to myself, why am I not using that money and just doing exactly what you said? Taking whatever number it is, taking the $100,000, lending it to someone else, vetting out the deal, knowing if the numbers work, and then maybe it comes back with 105 or 110. And
if he defaults, in my market, if the guy defaults, like I drove over there, walked in it, if he defaulted, it's an $80,000 house.
Right.
So awesome. I'm not that. Yeah. So
double your money.
Yeah, right. And then I would sell it for, exactly. So why, like you said, like you thought, like why did I not do that?
And as an interesting point to that, I just bought a house. I bought it at the court auction in our area, and you know how it is. It's like a 24-hour turnaround. You got to have the cash back to the sheriff, right? So I contacted a guy I've known for about 10 years out of Florida, and I had been chatting with him about investing a little bit. He does some investing. He's down in Florida, so he's kind of taking advantage of that market. And I said, I just locked up. It was $25,000 as a deposit. I had the money in order to continue forward in cash, and I thought, I just need to if I can get this extra 75 in somehow. And he goes, oh man, I got 85 in my IRA. I'm like, okay. He goes, well, I'll give you the money. So it was like, boom. 24 hours later, he's wiring money into my account. So I did my first private lending closing, or not even a closing really, my first private loan through an IRA where he lent money to me. So it's out there, man. And he's making money. It's 3 points. Be paying 12% on the money, which is what we agreed to, but it's going to be kind of a short-term thing. So it all worked out on my end, and the house is worth 160 or so. So I'm real happy about that transaction.
Okay, a couple quick questions. First of all, we should tell people that stop thinking about the interest rate. You're lucky you got a free asset.
Right.
I just I get a lot of young people call me, text me, oh my God, 16%, 12%. And I used to think that way.
Right.
But when I look at it, I'm making money from free money. Right. And so I just want people that just heard what he just said, he paid 12%, 3 points.
Right.
Like that's a deal. Like you didn't have to give your credit card. You didn't have to pay for an appraisal, maybe not. You didn't have to give him your social. And
right.
And so my other question for you is, so people out there just want to get that effing clear. Don't worry about the interest rate. just get the deal done, and you can always refinance or sell it. Who is this custodial? Do you know?
I believe it was Equity Trust.
Right on.
That's who he's using down
That's
there.
cool. Everybody uses Equity Trust.
Yeah. They're a big name out there. And he actually funded the whole thing, so it was 100%. He ended up having more in the IRA. At the time I was saying, well, I only need 75, and he's like, oh yeah, I've got at least 85 in there. He comes back to me, he has over 100 in there. So he actually funded back the original deposit of the 25. I had to put down 25,000, and then gave me the 75 to pay the whole balance off for the sheriff. So I'm zero in money on the deal on my side. Got a $160,000 asset at $100,000. Yeah, I'm paying points and 12%, but it's all going to work out. And it came with tenants in it too, which is kind of interesting. So they're actually paying
cash flow right at the gate.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's kind of a break even at this point, but once I'm finished with the property, it's going to be a great asset for me. So,
well, check this out. So I'm going to call you back today or tomorrow. We're going to record that and
cool.
put that on my Best Deal Friday. I have not done one, and I would love to hear that because that's just it's. I mean, how long you been an investor?
15 years ish.
But I mean, you're just smooth about it. You're very comfortable with that transaction. And about 5 years ago, I would be kind of nervous. And I mean, that's a no money down deal without pre-approval. I mean, that's rock star. No wonder you have a little podcast.
Hopefully, yep.
I mean, no wonder. I mean, man, I got to start listening to your stuff.
Hopefully, you get something out of it. I try.
Yeah, I mean, you just motivate. I mean, another thing you need to tell your listeners out there, you got to just repeat yourself, not yourself like over and over. You got to listen to that CD about private money. I learned about private money 7 years ago, maybe longer, but I was insecure. Like I have no degree. I'm a dropout. I'm ghetto. I got tattoos. I'm blue collar. Right. Uneducated by society. I never thought that anyone would loan me money, and it's so easy. Not easy in a negative way. Right. I mean, you have credibility. I'm an investor, but.
Well, you mentioned something. You said private money CD. What's that? You said you listen to the private money CD.
Oh man, I listen like what CDs I'm listening to.
I know you just made a comment as you were starting that sentence. Like I listened to this private money CD, and then thinking about how I can borrow private money, but I'm just this blue collar guy. So did you get some information somehow?
Well, yeah, 7 years ago, I went to a course in Dallas. My cousin and I bought the freaking course for $2,000. I don't even know if we want to get into this, but this is a true story. 7 or 8 years ago, I was in Dallas at a private money. It was a real estate seminar. I was like really getting serious about it. And so my cousin was really getting serious about it. He's like, let's do it. So let's meet in Dallas. So he flew in from San Francisco. I drove from Oklahoma City. And I'm sitting through, and this guy, he's not far from you, Alan Cogill.
Yep, familiar with the name, yep.
So the private money guru guy. So I'm going through this class, and I'm thinking, of course I bought the course. It was $2,000. We split it. I've never opened the damn course since then. I'm being serious. Like, this is a true story. This is like, I got to get the exact date. It's got to be at least 7 years ago, maybe more. And so that day was the day that I wanted to write the book. And the reason why I wanted to write The Savvy Landlord, because it would be instant credibility. It would be, and it works. It works in locally at my banks. Like when I go to a bank and sign loans and they're introducing me to the vice president or the senior president, he's like, oh, this is the guy that wrote the book. Well, they don't know that I hired somebody $50 an hour. Now, I wrote the book and I'm specific on what I put in the book and it's authentic. And why I really wrote it, but I did, the seed was planted that for me I knew that one day banks were going to stop loaning me money. They were going to catch on that I'm some blue collar guy, that they're going to figure it out. And then one day they're going to say, hey, you can't borrow no more.
Sure.
And that hasn't happened though. 10 years later, I'm still getting funding, but I realize for me, there's a deal that I'm trying to buy in Florida that is a really large deal. And if I had private money, and I'm pushing myself, 4 years ago, I interviewed a guy for the book, and he was buying property all over the country. And I'm like, there's no way he could do that. And he is. And I don't even buy property 30 miles from me because I'm nervous. I don't want to drive over there. I don't want to deal with ghetto tenants.
Right.
But 4 years later, after I wrote the book, I'm like, I want to push myself. But if I had private money, and I'm in the middle of underwriting, and I think I got the loan. But the point is, I'm hot and horny on private money that I learned about 10 years ago. So it's all coming in, it's in progression. It's like someone's going to listen to this podcast. It's not easy doing what you're doing. It's labor intensive. There's no return on your investment. Yeah, now we're tight. I remember what you look like. I've been emailing you for a year. I'm like, who is this guy, Joe from Chicago? And then you're like, do you have a CD? I'm like, yeah. And you buy it. I'm like, wow. But there's a relationship there. Will I loan you private money? Absolutely. Because it would be worth me. Hey, I'll fly to Chicago, look at this deal, write it off on my taxes.
Yep.
But it all started with a course that I never listened to, and I'm now listening to the course, and now I'm all into private money. And, I would have never done the podcast if it wasn't for my wife. It's very labor intensive. There's no return on investment. Yeah, there's cool people like you that text me and motivate me, but you're ready for a long road, my friend.
Yeah.
So you can always put me on your radio show. On your show, because I'll juice you up.
Thank you.
It's hard. Anyway, I don't know if we answered any questions, but the point is, one, don't worry about the interest. Two, start prospecting now for private money. Don't be a puss like I was, low self-esteem, didn't think I could do it. Start building your credibility kit now. I'm just now, and I learned this the other day, you have to have artificial deadlines. And so I set a goal in 10 days, I'm going to get this credibility kit done because I'm going to go to a party. It might be my daughter's fundraiser for her school for the ballet, whatever, which is going to be murder for me to go there. But I'm going to meet some millionaire guy who is, I met some guy on the beach not too long ago. He was an anesthesia doc has so much money, didn't know what to do with it. Well, let me help you.
That's awesome.
But I didn't have a credibility kit. I just said, hey, go to my website, savvylandlord.me, know, and then is he really going to take the initiative? No, but if I took his phone number, his email, and said, hey, this is my credibility information.
Right.
If you want to get a return for your $100,000, I would love to talk to you about it.
So the next private money lending opportunity is right around the corner. You just got to be ready for it, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Now, how'd you meet that guy?
Met him at a conference. But like I said, it was probably originally it was back in like 2006 or 7, and we kind of just maintained contact. And he's a broker out of Florida. I'm always curious about getting some waterfront property and getting on a boat someday. That's like my dream. So we stay in touch. He's doing foreclosures out there. And
what city?
He's in Tampa.
Okay, cool.
Interesting market down there. I mean, there's a lot of lower price assets down there where people, even during the downturn, you might have seen some of it going for $10,000-$15,000 for single family properties. I mean, it's insane. And that always kept my curiosity perked, and I was like, hey man, what's going on? Like, I'll email him every couple months, be like, what's going on down there? Got any good deals? You got to have good deals at those prices. Now he's a little more particular about where he buys, but he's flipping, he's selling REO. So we have some similar backgrounds because, I'm selling REO up here in Chicago. Before we digress off that, though, you mentioned a credibility kit. So for the listeners out there, why don't we break down actually what a credibility kit is for when you're looking for private money?
All right. So I usually don't like to speak on something that I haven't done or I'm an expert in.
Let's tell them what it is, though.
Okay. So basically, I think it's a big fat resume of what you can do for someone else. So it talks about your background. I think it also talks about what your goals and agenda are as a company. And I think that a lot of people are confused. I've been reading a lot about credibility kits because I'm going to try to do a podcast on it. But I think you need to come from a business perspective. Don't come from, hey, I'm Joe and I'm cool. Say, hi, I'm blank blank LLC, and this is what I do. And then I think you should have in there what you've done, your accomplishments, but then what you're going to do, but also like deals that you've done before and after photos.
Sure.
One credibility kit really turned me on. It had a bunch of FAQs. I think that your main goal in prospecting and getting private money is to educate that person. They've worked hard for that $50,000, $100,000, $1 million sitting in a bank account that's not yielding what it needs to be. It's not easy to relinquish that, to give that to you.
Sure.
So you have to give them the credibility as credit that hey, I'm worthy. Some people gain it. Some people grasp it. Some people they run from it. And I found out that because they're uneducated. So your job is to truly educate as many people as you can on why they should be loaning private money, and not necessarily to you, but just
Right.
in general,
Sure.
just to make, there's an amazing book, and I don't know if you've read this, but I would get it today. It's called The Banker's Code. It
Sure.
is from, have you heard George Antone?
I have the book. Yes, I'm familiar. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a little book. I mean, it's a couple-hour read, but man, it blew my mind that this really happens. Not because private money is sexy for people because it's no credit, it's easy, it's no money down. But in reality, I put up my whole empire on that little $50,000 loan. Like, if you were willing to loan me money, I'm like, Joe, here's my assets. Here's everything. And if I default, I think you have a right to attack my. And I think that's what integrity is.
Sure. Yeah.
But
no.
anyway,
So
so Credibility Kit just basically educates them on what you're doing, that they should invest in you, that there should be a return, there should be references, letters of reference,
Okay.
and I've checked this out. So I talked to a guy that I'm interviewing a bunch of people coming up, and one guy I called. I was like, "Hey, buddy, I know you do private money. He's got California money. He's in Oklahoma. I interviewed him. His name is Ben Puskowski. He's like way down there in mine. He actually moved to Oklahoma from Oregon, California-ish, to invest here. I don't know if you heard that podcast. It's a great podcast. Like I was like, you got balls for coming here. Right. And I called him the other day, like just last week, and I was like, bro, working on my credibility. He's like, what's that? I said, he's been borrowing millions of dollars without a credibility kit.
Wow.
He didn't even know what it was. So.
Wow.
You don't, when I coach people, they're like, well, I got to go out and get an LLC. No, you need to go out and get a deal. Don't even think about money.
Right.
Go learn how to farm, learn how to network, learn how to develop a relationship so a wholesaler or a seller will give you the property.
Sure. Because if you find the deal, you'll be able to find the money.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I know. I've not had a problem, and I've had no money at my lifetime.
All right. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about you. I want the listeners to know who you are. I want to help build up some of what you got out there. Like you mentioned your book a bunch of times. Why don't we talk about the book? Because I know that I bought the book, love the book. I've referenced it a few times. I bought all 3 of your books.
My only fan.
Yes.
My
Right.
fan.
Well, if you've only had 3 Amazon sales, then
it's going to be awkward when I see you. I just want to be clear. When I hug you, you're like, this guy, I guess I don't even know what the PC word is, gay or homosexual. I'm so lost in society, but people are going to assume when I grab your ass, they're going to be like, this guy's gay. It's okay. Because you motivate me, bro. Every time you text me, every time you're like, are you going to record that? I'm like, I have a recording that I recorded the other day that I'm going to share with you that it's never going to be for sale because it's like it's just a bunch of young 6 kids in a room, me beating them up. And I'm like, this guy Joe is going to go off when I see you, I'm going to hug you. I'm like, you are my fan.
That's awesome. Yeah, I
am.
am.
A good thing. And I think we should be fans. I'm fans of my mentor. I love my mentor. To this day, 1999, he let me ride with him. I've never paid him. He blows me off. I know he puts me on ignore when I'm desperate. I'm like, I got to get this deal. But just the other day I called him and he made me 20 grand by say this or negotiate that.
Okay.
But anyway, how I got into the book, what do you want me to talk about? Like when I was broke and homeless?
What do you want to hear? So the reason why I'm your number one fan is because number one, you're real. You bring out the truth. You're telling everyone the real story. You started with nothing. You grew it into something massive, and that's inspirational, and that motivates me every day because it crosses my brain every time I see that Savvy Landlord podcast pop up. I'm like, yeah, got to hear it. I want to know what he's up to now because
right on.
It's awesome.
Cool.
So yeah, I think let's start with the beginnings. Let's talk about it. So people know who you are.
All right. So I was born in 1973. So you could do the little math. My birthday's coming up. I'll be 43. I do have goals and dreams, but I started out. My mother had my brother. He's 6 years older than me, and my dad. When I was born, my dad left. A lot of it was my brother had some behavioral issues. He was upset that all the attention was towards me. And so my dad just left and abandoned us, and my brother was angry with me because I was, got all the attention. Though obviously I was an infant mother effer, and it's so cool. It's like my brother and I have been estranged for all these years. And this yesterday, I hung out with him.
Wow.
And we raced RC cars. And it was something that was been his passion. Anyway, so my dad left. We lived in 1-bedroom apartments. My mom lived in the living room. I could never have friends. I fought all the time. I was angry at my dad. And so then my dream was people to like me. And I got kicked out of school, and we just moved around every 4 years, and it just sucked because my mom had to work all the time, and I was trapped at this house, and I couldn't have friends over because my mom lived in the living room. So I didn't understand. I was just angry at her. Why can't I do this? Why can't I do that? But I saw that she sacrificed, and I didn't understand until now, at being an adult and what she's done for me. But it motivated me. And the reality was, I don't want to be my mom. I didn't want to be broke all the time. We didn't have Christmas. And I know it's cool, to be wealthy now and never work again. But I can understand. I hope that I can encourage people that you can do it, right? Because I was just like, that was my drive. How did I get here this morning? Why am I doing this podcast? It doesn't yield. But I wanted to be wealthy. I wanted to not be poor, and I for sure did not want to live in an apartment. So that was my only dream. And then during that process, I wanted to own a business. And so then from there, I went. They lied to me in school. They were like, "You're never going to amount to anything. You're going to be a woodworker." I hate labor. I hate wood. And then from there, I mean, seriously, if I smell the wood burning, it bothers me. It's like Psycho, because it reminds me of this school, and I got shipped off to a special school in New Jersey, because in New Jersey you have to go to school. You can't, in Oklahoma, you can say you're homeschooled, and you can be emancipated adult. In Oklahoma, in New Jersey and the East Coast, my mom can go to jail if I don't go to school. Right. So they shipped me to a special school. Because I was a disruptive child, and so they were like, and I was fighting all the time. I was angry. And they're like, you need to learn a trade. You need to be a woodworker. And I'd have these wood classes. And I'm like a psycho kind of perfectionist in my mind. I can't cut wood. I don't know how to measure correctly. It doesn't fit. Like the damn box doesn't make a box. And so I was like, man. And then they said, which infuriates me, you're never going to go to college. And so I just wanted to prove people wrong. I wanted to be wealthy. I didn't want to live in an apartment. And I wanted to go to college. So when I finally got to college, through some circumstances, it was a joke. I was like, wow, this is it? You just memorize stuff and show up? Right. That crushed me, because that was my goal, to prove everybody wrong, that, I can go to college. And, I got the learning disability written on me. And then in high school, I got it off. I passed a bunch of tests because I was so far behind, because I was getting kicked out all the time. And so then I came to know Christ in July of the summer, and my youth minister, she's like, hey, you need to go to OBU. What's Oklahoma? I lived in San Francisco, in the Bay Area. And so she drove me out one spring break. I think it was my senior year, to come check out the campus. I liked OBU. They accepted me. They were dumb. And and it's a long chain of events, but I got to Oklahoma, and then I was here. I lived in the dorm, and then I was like, school sucks. This is dumb. So I started becoming an entrepreneur. I started DJing, started throwing parties, started making money. Then myself and two guys, we moved into a $350 bedroom in the hood house. And I remember the landlord, and remember I was suppressed, uneducated. I only thought millionaire. I hated rich people. That was the big thing. People, man, I literally hated rich people. And when this landlord was like, I'm going to sell this house someday for $35,000. Now, this is by the drive-by city area. I mean, this is hood rat. Right. And I was like, man, I can own a house. 135 houses later. Wow. I never knew that I would be able to live the dream that I'm living. So that was cool. That was a seed. And I think that was in 1997 is when I lived there. And then 2 years later, some punk rockers that I was in a band, I was managing some bands and, just hustling, trying to make money. And these kids gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad. They were touring around the country and they never worried about money. And I was like, that's bizarre, because they owned a duplex. They were 18 years old, and one side paid for their whole living expenses for their mortgage. And I didn't even know what a duplex was. Like I didn't know it was two people living under one roof, because I didn't understand. And then one day, this guy Cale and Justin Griman, and never forget where you came from. To this day, I bless them, and I can get into that later. But they gave me the book, and it's like the first book I ever read outside of mandatory school, college. I was overweight, on the edge of divorce. I was laying on the couch, going nowhere, DJing on the weekends because I made enough money to survive. I needed like $800 to $1,000 a month to live. Mm-hmm. And I read that book, and it blew my effing mind. First of all, I learned that you can be rich. It's not a social status. Like, oh, okay, I could be rich. It's possible. Okay, so that was a seed. And then it said, to be rich, you got to buy assets. Okay, and assets make you money. Well, I like to make money, no doubt. And so then I'm not playing. I sold my microwave, my TV, and I just started buying assets. I saw a sign it was a sign next door to the rent house I was renting. It had an auction, and I looked at the auction was that night. I looked on the website. There were 6 houses or 12 houses for sale. I drove by one of the houses. Now I couldn't get in. And this is risk. I walked around the house and I was like, okay. So then I went to the auction, and 3 houses before that were like going for 10 or 12,000. And I'm like, dude, you can buy a car,
right?
And you could live live in a house. So I was like, so I raised my hand and I won this effing house, 620. It's in my book. Like, that was one thing about my book. It pissed me off. I read a bunch of real estate books. No one puts the addresses. Right. No one says that I'm a millionaire. I own 135. Well, look on the county. You can find my house. It's like, I'm not trying to hide. I get sued and stuff. That's cool. Sue me, whatever. But the deal is, 620 Northwest 31st. It went for $14,500, and I had no money in my bank account. But I was like, you could buy a car. I thought it was easy. Like, I thought a car, you could just go fill out an application. So I wrote a hot check for $700. Back then it was 5%. I wrote a check for like $700 and something dollars, and I had like a couple $100 in there. So then I went and pawned. It was a Friday was the auction, or Thursday or Friday. I knew I had over the weekend to get the money in there. Not like today where it funds that night. So I went and pawned my gold chain that I bought in the 80s when I worked at McDonald's. And I remember buying that gold chain with the freaking eagle on it that I paid $100 when I worked for $3.35 an hour when I was like 16.
Wow.
I pawned that gold necklace and I sold a bunch of crap, and I barely made the check cleared.
Awesome.
So I was like, okay, great. Now I got to come up with $14,000 or $13,700 or something. So I was like, every bank shot me down. What's a DJ? You have no job. You have no tax return. Well, I was in college, but I was like, I want to be rich. And I'm like, and of course I was so ignorant. Now keep in mind, I was super ignorant. Like, I didn't know. And I think that's the thing. My success is like, this credibility kid, I'm just doing it. Like, I don't know what's right or wrong. I mean, now I Google stuff up. Now I study and I read. But so then I got no. And I called my mom, and she lived in California. My mom lived in a freaking mobile trailer park in Concord, California. She bought for 16. That was worth 50. at this time. I helped her sell it, which is cool. And she called Bank of America. She's like, hey, I want to buy this house in Oklahoma. And they laughed at her on the phone. You want a $14,000 loan? They wrote my mom that loan.
Wow.
And so I couldn't believe it. And that was my first. Now, there's other houses I bought since then. And then I did it again. My mom was getting pissed because I was like, I went to another auction and I raised my hand again. It was a $17,000 or $24,000 house. And I bought that house. And then my mom was like, no. And then I started buying owner finances. And then that was in 1999.
That's awesome.
And I would never know. Now, yeah, I had diarrhea. Yeah, you read my book, but you know, it's not like, hey, I'm a millionaire. Hey, you know, buy my course. Right. No, I love it when people really read it because no one I didn't realize I wrote the book. People remember I wrote the book for the credibility, but I wrote the book too because I love to read. But people don't read. I was like, I should have never wrote a book. But when people do read it, they're like, man, I feel sad for you. Like, I can't believe that you did that you got bent over so many times. And I'm like, yeah, but I have no regret because I think it just accelerated my success. I mean, you got to think for the first 1999 to 2009, that 10 years part-time, I became a millionaire. And then from probably 2009 to 2012, in 3 years, I became a multi-millionaire.
Wow.
And because, the first 10 years, I was just fumbling along part-time, had a real job. Well, not a real job, but I mean, I DJ'd and hustled. But then some key books, and you need to read Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. So Rich Dad Poor Dad made me a millionaire, and I love the guy. And, people scrutinize Kiyosaki. I'm like, it's so funny. I love it when I used to buy cases of that book, and no one would read it. People would read it and say, that guy wrote the book to make money, and then a few of us would be wealthy. And then people were like, how do you become a multimillionaire? I'm like, read this book. This is like Rich Dad Poor Dad Part 2, Millionaire Fastlane. And I just do what the damn book says. This is not like, I just did it. I don't know. Again, remember, I came from nothing. So what's the worst thing to this day, did you hear my podcast on fear?
Yes.
Did you listen?
Yes.
And I'm like, I'm being serious. Like, look, I love this new one. I thought, this is random. This shit's random. So when I was like, what's the worst thing? I go bankrupt? Okay. Right on. Am I going to go to jail? No. They shut me down. They just took everything. IRS said, F you, VanCauwenbergh. Okay. I'm still going to be a father. I can go on a construction job. I can go paint. I can GC. I can make money flipping contracts. I can wholesale. They can't stop me from being successful. Only you can.
Right. Sure. No, I
love
it. And that's where you started from nothing and brought it up to 135
Oh, yeah, and I was homeless
houses.
too. Yeah, I remember when I started this thing. So back in 1995, I went to Oklahoma in 1992. 1994, 95, I was homeless. I was supposed to go in the military. I don't know if I talked about this in the book, but I enrolled, and I took the job that had the biggest paycheck. It was EMT, and I hate blood. And I passed this ASVAB, and it's like they were going to give me a $5,000 signing bonus if I was an EMT. So I took that dumb job. But then I went to the military, and then I went to California to ship out, and they're like, no, you can't do it. You got to go back to Oklahoma. Well, I spent all my money. So I took a bus back to Oklahoma on the Greyhound, and they're like, well, your paperwork's messed up. I'm like, fellas, look, dude, I've got to ship, or I got to go back to school or get a job. And so I actually never made it to the military, and I was living on this dude's couch. And I was literally homeless in 1995. And then, so 1997, I think but 1999 was when I bought my first house. So 1998, 97 is when I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then I just started doing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And we talked about the first couple deals, starting from nothing, getting your mom to get the loans for you to buy these first couple houses from auction, which you're right. That's high risk stuff. You're walking around these properties, maybe you can see them through the windows, but you have no idea what the interior condition is, unless maybe you can see something through those windows. But typically you have no idea if there's mechanicals and, plumbing, electric, what else needs to be done inside the house. Give me some of those stories. I mean, how did you get to 135 houses or 135? Is it units or houses?
Units. I mean, I have 100. I have an apartment building, but basically, that was real riskful. I wouldn't do that today. And actually, they had an open house, but I was so. I mean, hot and horny is my new word. I don't know why. I just need to stop selling. Some girl's going to email me and slap me, but I was so hungry that I just did it. I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? And of course, I just didn't care. $14,000. Okay, how much money in student loan? I mean, I feel sorry for students that have. I'm coaching a kid right now. He's got $30,000 in student debt. He can't, and that's cheap. He can't pay it back. His job, he makes $50,000 a year. He nets $2,600 a month. He can't pay back his $30,000.
Wow.
I mean, he can, $5 a month for 50 years.
Right.
But the point is, people say I'm riskful. It's calculated. There is no risk here. Like, okay, if it burns down, okay, I have insurance.
Right.
I read that in the book.
Yep.
If I'm going to live in it. And so I lived in that property for 2-3 years. I actually tiled it myself. I worked on it myself. Now, it could have had a bad sewer line. I probably couldn't. It didn't have central heat and air. I had to beg for that money from my father-in-law of my first wife. I made him feel like a loser. I can't believe, it was sad. And I'm confessing that. I had to do the impossible. I had to beg for money at that time, which I totally regret that now, but I just started doing it. The main thing that got me in was I have met this guy, this super successful investor that is still a friend of mine today. He was selling owner finance, $2,000 down and 10% interest, which I bought 5 houses from him in the beginning, which I just DJ'd. I made about $300 to $500 a gig, and I paid myself $100. So every 20 gigs, I just went and bought a house. So I had a little piece of paper on the wall. Okay, I can't wait to make $2,000, because when I make $2,000, I'm going to call Scott up and say, "Hey, Scott," my mentor guy at the time. Of course, he was hustling me. He was selling me POSs. I bought a house for real. I bought a house that had the sewer line had concrete in it from the past person that he took it back from.
That's terrible.
But that's okay. I lost $10,000. But where am I at today?
Right.
Now, I see people, they lose money and they get out of the game. I met a kid the other day that got out, and it just broke my heart. Yes, there's several times that I wanted to quit. There was one time I had 14 houses. Not units, 14. I remember this number. And when I met my wife, my real wife, at 7 units, 7 houses, I wanted to quit. I wanted to give it to the church. I wanted to, be a missionary, because this was too hard. I'm working for free, but man, I'm so glad that I didn't quit.
Absolutely.
I'm so glad that I'm where I am today. And that you're even interviewing me, which is even more psycho, that we're even friends. I met you at some deal session. I thought that too. When Brad Grayson called me, he said, "Hey, bro, you need to come to this deal." He was like, "You have to have done 50 transactions." Well, 50 deals. I'm like, well, okay, because Brad has like 300 units. He doesn't tell anybody.
Right.
But I know, Brad, I know you have 300. And
I think he said it during the advanced deal makers session is what it's called. Now that you brought it up again, I forgot the actual term of that little private networking meeting, but I thought he said he brought that number out there. I'm pretty sure, because I was like, whoa! I was like, who is this guy? How did he do that?
That dude, Brad is legit. Have you not seen him speak?
Not unlike him as the main speaker. No, just in that room. That's the only time I ever met him.
He speaks every year for the Mr. Landlord Conference. Sure. And he's like me, but just older. He's just legit. Like, he's not trying to make money off this deal. He just likes to help people. You need to connect with him.
Yeah, I know Eddie's actually. Eddie talks to him quite a bit.
He likes me. I don't know why. Again, I feel the same way. When I met him 7 years ago or 5 years ago, I was like, wow, well, you're so big, you won't even tell me your number. I'm like, I don't care no more. Like, some people will attack me and try to take me down because they're jealous. Some people I will inspire, and I'm not throwing it out there. I don't put it on Facebook. I guess it's on my webpage, but it's not on my Facebook page. I'm humbled. I want to tell people that you can do it too. There's no difference between me and you. It's just because I have nothing to lose. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Back to where you were.
Yeah, I regret. And I read this from somewhere, or maybe Zig Ziglar or Brian Tracy. I don't want to be 50 years old, and I'm 43 coming up in September. I don't want to be 50 and say I had regrets. And now I don't want to be that 60-year-old guy. Like I tutor kids on Thursdays, and this 80-year-old lady tutors, and she just got back from Cancun. And I was like, this chick can barely effing walk. And I'm like, wow, I want to go to Cancun now. I don't want to wait. I want to live now. I want to live my life now. And so for that to happen, for me to live the lifestyle that I want, I have to grind it out. I have to call people. I have to do interviews that I don't that I'm not yielding. But one day, I know you've done a deal with a private man, and now I'm fascinated, and I'm like, sure. I'm going to interview you.
Okay.
And I think that's just how, people, the number one question I got a lot when I was on tour, when I toured with a lot of famous bands, and it doesn't matter their names.
I'm kind of curious though.
Okay. Well, people ask me this all the time, but back then, you ever heard of a band called POD?
Yeah.
Payable on Death? They're like a support band.
Yeah.
Okay. I was their road manager right when they got assigned to Atlantic.
Oh,
and
awesome.
Right when they were blowing up. They're platinum. Mm-hmm. And I would be, we would travel, we would play for thousands of people. We would pay at bars for 50 people. The one thing I learned from them was the most incredible thing. One, that they poured their heart out every time they played. We'd be at a bar and I was the road manager, and I would be beating up the owner, like, where's our $1,000, fag? Where's your money?
Right.
And they would play for 10 people and be out of control, and the same intensity. I learned that from them, and I learned every time I landed somewhere, people asked me, how did you become their road manager? Seriously, I probably answered that question more in my whole life. And I always said the same thing. I just made a phone call. This is how I got on tour with them. I was a promoter. I was driving back from California one day, and I was like, what's my dream? What do I want to do? This is before real estate. I want to be I love music. I want to be a promoter. I want to make money. I want to be a promoter. So I'm going to call what's my favorite band? My favorite band back then was called The Prayer Chain. They were from Concord, California. They were on a record label called 5 Minute Walk Records, small indie label out of Concord. So I call the owner answers. Hey, I'm a college student and I have access to a building in Oklahoma, and I would like to bring this band in. And they're like, no, they're on tour in Europe. Right. But I have another band called this. And so I hosted a concert at the local little college.
Awesome.
So from a phone call of it, I want to do my dream, I call the record label. He throws me some ghetto band. Well, after that ghetto band, I become a promoter. Now, I do it all wrong, but then all of a sudden, all these bands start wanting to play for me. And because I give them pizza and I pay them. Like, I take the $5 at the door and I give them the money.
That is awesome.
Wow. Real simple concept.
Right.
And they're like, you're so cool. Won't you go on tour with us? Okay. And so I started going tour with random bands. And then I started then I started saving my money, and I started buying a sound system. Then my roommate was an engineer. And then I was like, hey, you want to go on tour? So then I called a company in Seattle that just signed POD as their booking agent. And they were looking for sound. And they were like, well, I was dumb. I underbidded it. I was like, X amount of money per show, which
right.
was a fool. And that's how I got to ride with POD. They liked me so much. They're like, would you mind going on tour with me? We'll pay you X amount of money. But you're a hard ass. You'll punk people. And that's what we need, because we just want to play. We want to tell people about Jesus, and we want to play. I was like, no problem.
That is a crazy story.
But that's how it is. Like, that's the freaking truth. It's like, people like, how do you become a millionaire? Well, I read these 2 books. Like, well, I don't want to read. Okay, I called. And so Brad Grayson called me and said, hey, he's a friend. you should come to Ohio. Why? There's this cool thing. He said the conference is okay, but there's this one thing that we meet the day before is worth every penny.
Mm-hmm.
And my other friend goes. And so I was like, I'll go. And here I am with you.
Yep. Yeah, that was.
And hopefully your podcast will be so huge. And then you'll just you'll have commercials. People are going to pay you, monetize it.
Right.
And
sponsorships.
Then I'm going to beat you up. I'm like,
That's
look,
cool.
dude, remember I was there. I was number 3.
Right.
Okay.
Right. You're number 3 on the video. This is episode 15, though. Just so yeah. See, I'm not all. I'm a little more. I got it going on a little bit.
So I'm 15.
You are.
I'm like, look, can I get half price?
Right.
I'm trying to promote my new book. I'm writing a book right now.
Awesome.
So I have 2 in the pipeline, but I have one that I'm going to release. So it's called The 100 Savvy Secrets of the Real Estate Investor.
Awesome.
And I'm spilling the beans. Now you'll hear a lot of them on the podcast but I'm like 100 things that I effing do to get to this deal. I don't know if that will be one of them, but
Sure.
I seriously here's one of them I need to write out. The title company works for me for free. For real. People call me all the time. How do you do title checks? I'm like, I just call a title company. Well, that's $75. Well, the thing that I did is I had a closing and the gal freaking just helped me out so many times. I bought her an RC helicopter. I freaking drop shipped that mess to her office.
The title company lady.
The chick that my closer, my escrow girl.
Nice.
I mean, I just drop shipped her a helicopter.
Okay.
She's a 60-year-old chick. Now, she had a weird watch on one day, had a skull on it. And I was like, hey, girl.
Rock on.
Yeah, I'm like, what's up with this skull? She's like, my niece gave me this. And I was like, okay. Because I try to take her to lunch. She goes, no. I try to, I don't want to bring her cookies because that's she might be chubby. So I dropped her a helicopter. I'm telling you, she'll never forget me. And when I call her and say, hey, is there a lien on this property? Or, hey, can you find out what mortgage this is from? Or, hey, I have a septic problem on this property and it's not on my property. How do I get this? The lawyer's saying I have to own the property. How do I get that done? She's like, you got to get this, and an easement. You got to get them to sign. And she did it for me.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, I mean, I owe her. And
Absolutely.
So that's how you do it. You got to go with your spirit. You're like, hey, I'm stupid busy. I'm doing, but I'm like, what's the worst thing that could happen? You just don't know. You just have to, with my gut. I know you're not sketchy. I know you pay your $5 to buy my little audio. I mean, you're the first one that bought the audio. I'm like, this guy, he's like, you're record it. I'm like,
yeah.
No one wants this shit. I'll buy it. Someone else ordered it the other day. I was like, who is this guy?
That's awesome.
I mean, I've never intended to make money off of this situation, but
tell everyone what you got going on, because we talked about the book. Now we talked about a couple different books. I know we can get all your stuff on Amazon, right?
Yeah, but you can go to The Savvy Landlord. It's The Savvy Landlord, or you can go to my website, savvylandlord.me or thesavvylandlordbook.com.
Okay. And that's where you can get all the stuff you've written. And then on the audio side, what Steven's talking about is he hosts, I believe it's monthly, but the Landlord Lunch.
Yes. Tell
me about it.
Well, our RIAs here in Oklahoma City are competitive, which is really bizarre. And there's a RIA that's been around for about 15 years, and then there was really successful. That was the RIA that I actually went to 12 or 13 years ago, and it was amazing. It had a bunch of legitimate investors willing to help young investors. Well, that RIA has had some issues where they sold the RIA to somebody, and then it broke up, and now it's just they're always selling a $6,000 coaching program.
Right.
And it's probably viable. I mean, I don't want to. Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't want. I mean, they hate me anyway. They hate me. They effing hate me. So I'm like, okay. Because I'm legit, and I'm like, look, dude, nobody has $6,000. That's why they're here. I mean, how do you get $6,000? You learn a wholesale, you flip a deal. Anyway, so during that process, someone started another group, which is a really good group that I love. And, and I just wanted to give back, promote my stuff. And if you can get off of lunch, you're serious. And it's free. So once a month, the third Wednesday, it's cool. It's been organic. Now we have about 40-something people that show up. Some people take off their job, and they come, and it's just a collaborative effort. I just throw out a topic, and there'll be people in the room that are like way more smarter than me. Like, did you hear the one on the IRA? Did you download that one yet?
No, that's the new one, right?
Yeah,
no, not yet.
There's this, of course, I don't know anything about IRAs. So, but these are the subject these investors want to talk about.
Right.
And so I, read a few things, studied some stuff, and I learned so much that day. I make it seem like I know what I'm talking about, but I really don't. And I just keep posing questions. Sure. And so it's just a collaborative effort. It's just a room full of investors and landlords, and we just talk about stuff. And you're the one that said you should record it. And I'm like, okay.
This dude's crazy, but okay.
Yeah, I was like, I got the recorder, so I just have to hit record, and it's raw. And if you listen to the second one, I actually put a intro on there.
Yeah.
Because the first one, I just uploaded it.
Yeah, it had all like the background. There's people like forks and knives clicking in the background, and then you guys just kind of chatting off to the side, and it's picking up all the noise. But that's cool, man. I felt like I was in the room. I listened to the whole thing. I loved it. Yeah.
I think you'll like the IRA one. Like, right, I don't know. I'd be curious.
I'm gonna check it out. It out.
Some people, they loved it. Like, it was weird because the room was like standing room only, and it was such a hot subject, money, private money, and I'm just fascinated why people don't talk about it so much. Like, I feel like I'm getting consumed by it. Mm-hmm. Like, but it's an easy way to get into real estate. I don't know. So that's that. I have a couple courses out, virtual assistants course called Outsource to Wealth, which actually I had 10 people buy it, or 15. No, I had 15 people buy it when I spoke, and I have like local people buy it, and they've actually went through it. And I talked to a kid the other day, and I have a realtor that went through it, and he just raised $2 million, and he says his VA has given him freedom. And you use VAs.
Yeah.
So I did that course. I did a course on technology, which is pretty cool. And then that's pretty much it. And then I've written a few books, and then I don't know what I'm doing. I know for sure that I don't want to charge people $10,000.
Right.
I do some coaching. It's real casual. It's real down and dirty. Like, I take a few students that really want to do it, that really want to be. I got kids that have no money. They're broke. I'm gonna make them a millionaire. I'm like, bro, if you hang on, because the thing is, it's so simple. Like, people are like, how'd you get on POD 2? I called this booking agent, and I said this, and I did this. Like, just say that. Like, it's just so funny. There's a friend of mine that he raised $500,000 the other day. I said, call the bank and say this, and he didn't believe me, and he did it in Houston. And then he did it again in Oklahoma City. He lives in Houston, and he just raised $500,000 from one local bank.
Wow.
Just say these things. And all the knowledge is out there. Like, Savvy Landlord, there's nothing I'm new. Like, I'm stealing everybody's other material. I'm like, there's nothing out there, but the success is no one wants to do it. That's the problem.
Sure.
And I wish, so I don't know where this is going. I know. Oh, I went to the Eric Thomas conference, and he said, because I was actually going to shut Savvy down. I know. You know how much money I have in this thing? I have about 40 G's. I literally writing all the books. Remember, I hire someone $50 an hour to hold my hand because I'm ghetto. So when I say things like GAY, he's got to come up with a better way to say that. You got to imagine working for me. It's got to be a nightmare. And he bills me.
Sure. I bet he does.
He's living large. I got about 30 to 40 in it. I lost count after 20. And then I seriously was about to give this deal up again. I was like, of course, you encourage me. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I like your stuff. But then when I went to Eric Thomas, and he went just exactly the same question, he went in levels. You got to go this level to this level to this level to this level. And he's like, you had to hold on for 10 years. And so when he said 10 years, you become a master. When I look at my DJ business, it was 10 years when it was viable. When my bridal business, when I sold that, it was 10 years. My real estate, my DJ business, when I became a millionaire 10 years into real estate, part-time. My bridal business, after the 10-year mark, I sold it for $400,000. My DJ business, I held on to it for 20 years like a dummy. And all this is because of the Millionaire Fast Lane, because I read that book. It said, get out of businesses that are low barrier of entry. And when I realized it's 10 years. So I've only been 4 years on Savvy. Right. So I told my wife when I got back, I was like, look, we got 6 more years with this Savvy BS. And and by then, if it's not, coaching kids and adults is rewarding, but, it takes a lot of time. Sure. I mean, it's not, I always look at it, and my mentors are like, Stephen, every time you write one of these books, how much time do you have in it? I'm like 9 months. How much money do you have in it? Oh, $5,000, $10,000. I'm talking about if I really sat down and analyzed the artwork and the distribution, the printing, and the guy that does my voice. He's like, if you just spent that kind of time buying real estate, you'd probably be,
the amount of units, yeah.
Yeah, it's just. But then I realized how did I get to 135? Well, it boils down to, I thought my first goal was like 25 units. And then I'm going to be rich
right.
at 25. And then my mentor was like, he told me this one thing. He's like, Stephen, when you get $1,000 cash flow a month, passive, it's awesome. It's hard. When you get to 5, it's murder. When you get to 10, it's easy from there. And he's right. Let me tell you, when you get to 10,000 cash flow, it's a joke from there. And the point is, okay, I set a goal for 25. It didn't provide enough. Then I was like, okay, 50, I'm going to be set free.
50,000 a month.
50. Well, I'm already there, but I'm already
units.
Yeah. I gross 50, but I don't net that. So let's just be clear. This is where it gets crazy. So 25, like if I was coaching a conservative person, you only need 10 or 15 to retire. Mm-hmm. So 25. Then I was ambitious. I pushed myself. So then I was running 50 units about 14 hours a week. Well, I still was owning the DJ business.
Wow.
So I have a whole course on 10 hours a week running my real estate as a landlord. If what's his name can do it, Mike Butler, landlording on autopilot.
Yep.
A cop, and I based my business model back then around his book. But when I got to 50, I was like, it wasn't enough economically because there's always some repair, there's always a vacancy. Mm-hmm. And so you literally have to double it. If you really want to live the freedom and you really want to live your dreams and you want to live large, so I was like 100 units. Mm-hmm. So then I got to 85 by myself, and it was a full-time job. And then I just started hiring. I have a general manager now, and I have a property manager, and I have a construction company, But it's still at 100, I'm only netting $5,000 a month. Now, I'm always constantly buying houses, and I try not to put that money. I don't take that money out. I try to keep reinvesting it and growing it. Mm-hmm. But, now I'm like, do I really need another house? No. But now I realize that you can. And, and then I pushed myself to buy this properties in Florida, which is way out of my comfort zone. Sure. Which blew my mind the other day was I filled out a loan doc in Florida.
Awesome.
And I can't believe they even believe me. They're like, I got this pre-approval letter on my wall. I'm like, you're willing to give me money for an asset in Florida?
That's awesome.
Wow. It's true.
Yeah.
You can, and I didn't think that you could do this. And so it hasn't been easy. I haven't closed this transaction, but I was like, man, you can do anything. And so I think, why not? Jim Rohn says, trees don't stop growing. We humans do. And like, so I want to give back. I want to have, you know,
that quote.
I want to help you. I mean, if I was chained to a job, I spent 2 hours with you, and it's not, of course I quantify every minute. How much money am I making? What's my square footage per the off? I mean, I'm psycho, right? Because that's how you learn. But you can't do that if you got a 9-to-5 job. Sure. I see kids come to my classes and they get in trouble because they go back late because I talk too much. They show up when I have a 7 o'clock class at 7 a.m. and we're there till 9. I know they're getting in trouble, and I feel for them. But that's how it takes. It takes because you've got to do that if you want. And so the more houses I buy, the more risk I take, the more liability I have. But why not?
Right.
Why not? Because I now have the capability to give more. I bought one of my workers a truck. I mean, after I got back from, I think I talked about that on the podcast. Like, I have to upgrade people. Right. He's a worker. He's been working for me for 3 years, dying on the sewer line.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't just write him. I didn't give him the pink slip. I was like, okay, bro. I was like, look, this truck costs $15,000. If you hold on for 3 years, that's $5,000 a year. You can have this truck for free. Now, you're going to maintain this truck right now. You're going to put it in your name because I don't want the liability.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get sued because you kill somebody. I'll run some chick over. I want you to, maintain the truck. But after 3 years, you don't have to make me any payments. You can buy me out at any time, and you own the truck for free. I don't think you can. I couldn't do that with 10 units. I couldn't do that at my day job, but I just changed this guy's trajectory. His life has changed. Yeah, he's probably on my nuts now. Yeah, he calls me back a little bit faster. I'm like, wow.
I hope so.
It works.
Right.
And I'm like, how can I buy more people $15,000 trucks?
I love it.
I'm being serious. Like, how can you? I got to make more money.
Mm-hmm.
I want more RC cars. I'm like, I got to repair these effing things.
Right.
They're only $7 for $3 for some parts, but my brother is hooking me up for free. I'm like, man, how cool will it be if I was so large that my brother, he works for $9 an hour at AutoZone. I mean, it's just crazy that I'm his brother. I live in a different market. He lives on the same street. It was one of my rent houses.
Wow.
Now, I bought that rent house for $42. He paid $65.
Uh-huh.
I make $1,000 a month. He loses $650 a month. So, I mean, get that message, people.
Right.
I mean, get that message. But I was thinking, I hung out with him yesterday. It's difficult for me to hang out with him. Nothing to be negative, just because there's a lot of wounds there. But I drove off, and he hates his job. He works at AutoZone. They yell at him because he overclocks his hours. Like, you can only get 24, and he gets 27 because he's part-time. I'm like, wow. They yell at him. They tell him what to do. I mean, I drove off there, and I was like, man, how cool would that be if I could just say, just fix my cars all day. Here's $200 a week, because that's what he makes. Oh. I mean, that you can't do that. So people get mad, like, oh, you got 100 units. No, I don't want no Cadillac. I got friends that have Corvette, dumb. Hopefully you don't have a Corvette, but
I drive a pickup truck.
Yeah, I mean, no disrespect. That's your dream. That's what you want to do. But like, I just want to give back. Like, I mean, my ultimate dream is like, I tutor kids in the hood, and I drive to where he lives, and it crushes me. This whole 200 unit apartment complex is all Section 8. I mean, it's scary. When I go up there at 3 o'clock, 3:30, 5:30 is when I drop this kid off. I'm scared. Right. And I'm a hood rat. I can talk ghetto. Now I'm white. Now that's a little bit different. But I mean, how cool would it be that if I could pay somebody $50,000 a year and provide an apartment that they could teach people how to make money, teach people not to be lazy, teach people how to live life grand. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would make a huge social impact. I mean, awesome. Every city had someone that was their job, that they like boots on the ground, like they got a seminar rolling every Saturday with balloons and some hot dogs, and they're out there saying, look, don't buy weed, or okay, maybe sell weed. No, I'm just saying, but I'm just saying like go to the flea market and buy trinkets with that weed, and do a good business.
Right.
And weed is just like selling RC car. I sell RC cars.
Yeah.
I do today. I import from China. I do because I can, because I like to make $10 on a transaction. Because my motive is that I get a free car. If I do 5 transactions, I get a free item.
Sure.
I mean, I love that in Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's like, I want a Porsche. That's cool. I'm not down with Porsches, but that's cool for you. But he's like, his wife was like, you got to go buy a house to pay for that Porsche. You should go buy the Porsche, but don't go buy the Porsche because you got a small cock and you're weak and you got to make yourself feel good. That's where you go wrong. You should buy the Porsche because that's your goal, and you're going to fund it through your acquisitions of being successful in whatever endeavor you do.
Absolutely. Landlordlunch.com. That's coming to Chicago, man. I'm letting you know. I'm gonna borrow that. I'm gonna borrow that one from you.
You can. It's a
great idea.
That's my dream. Like, you can have the website. Like, I'm being serious. Like, there is a dream and I'm trying to tell all my friends around the country, like, savvy investors is the same thing. Like, you go to landlordlunch.com. They click a button, it's Chicago. They click a button, it's Florida. I mean,
do it.
And it's like, yeah, throw $10 a year towards the domain, but like I noticed, like I did it for a year, and it wasn't easy. Like, you gotta prep, you gotta have a room, you gotta do it, and I'm like, I'm not getting paid. Like, I'm motivated. I'm not getting paid. Now you taught me, hey, record the damn thing and make $5. I'm like, hey, I'm in. All right. I'm worth $5 an hour. Maybe 10 people will buy it. I'll make $50. I'm like, wow.
I just want to hear it, man. I want to be a part of it. And I know there's one that you had a wholesale one you taught, and you said that your recorder broke.
No, I forgot to hit the record. I lied to you. I did. I know.
I was excited for that one,
dude. Yeah, I think we'll get it. But I designated somebody now. I'm like, dude, you gotta make sure this is recording,
right?
Because I felt bad because you text me, and I was like, man, I did. I was like, and I kind of like, well, it didn't work, is what I said. It didn't work because I didn't hit the button.
I think that's what. You said something didn't work.
I wanted to lie to you because I was like, I mean, of course I'm human. I'm like, this guy, I don't want to lose a customer.
Right.
But
so where can everybody get all this stuff? I mean, you talked about a lot of stuff.
Well, savvyinvestors.com is like a hub, which one day will be in Chicago. Like right now, I got a guy in Houston who is actually under Savvy. I mean, not under, but he's trying to do his own Savvy under the brand.
Sure.
And then there's one in Tennessee, but I don't know where this is going. But Savvy Investors is kind of the hub. My website, landlord. Now I do Savvy Breakfast that rolls out tomorrow.
Awesome.
Which is, I don't think I'm going to record the first one. And my goal for that is to raise private money. Like,
perfect.
And back to the reason Landlord Lunch has been, so I was going to cancel Landlord Lunch. I did it for a year. It's labor. And then one day my plumber bent me over like severely. Like he got me. He got me. He got me.
Okay.
I trusted you. I paid you. You got me. Okay. And I was desperate. And I text everybody on the Landlord Lunch. And I said, hey, does anybody have a plumber?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, 10 plumbers in my midst. And it was cool that at least 3 other investors brought up one plumber. Yeah. I was like, how much is that worth to me? If I called my boy Joe and you got me a loan, that's worth $1,000. I mean, if I called Joe and I was like, hey, how do you get this printed? Like when you get your book done, you're going to catalog all your podcasts. You're going to get them transcribed. You're going to hire a writer, and you're going to come out with a book in Chicago because you will do it.
Good idea. I never thought about using the podcast as the content, but
yeah. And then you're going to call me, and you're like VanCauwenbergh, and I'm going to walk you through it. And I'm like, this is how you do it because I've done it like 6 times now.
Awesome.
And so, but I was like, man, how much was this worth it to me? How much how much was it if I could find a plumber that I have 135 units, everybody shits in. How can I find a plumber? And in my mind, I was like, would I pay a referral service $250? Yeah. Was it worth $500 for me? Yeah. There you go. Mm-hmm. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to keep rolling with this landlord lunch thing. Because, I get some crackers in there. Crackers like not white, but like, they crack jokes. They try to be like, they talk too much. Like, dude, just shut up. Everybody needs to speak. Mm-hmm. And it's not the Steve VanCauwenbergh show, but no one speaks, so I've got to fill it in. Right. So that's the landlord lunch.
You're the moderator.
Yeah, and definitely do it. Like, and start small. Like, I'll help you. I have all it done. You just have to follow the plan. It's simple. Okay. You don't have to build the website. Now you just, and another kid does one, which is, I think I kind of copied him because he does it the second Saturday, the third Saturday, I don't know. He does it a wholesale breakfast is what he calls it. And because he's a wholesaler, sure. And he really wanted he doesn't even wholesale no more, which is hysterical. He keeps all of his own deals now. He got private money. Right. This kid was a wholesaler begging for money, then threw this breakfast together. And he asked me to speak one time. He's like, hey man, can you come speak at the breakfast? Okay. And he's like, well, speak of like what you buy. Oh, that's easy. Mm-hmm. So I spoke in front of, 20 wholesalers in Oklahoma City, and I told them what I want, and it worked. Yeah. And so anyway, now fast forward a year later, I coach this guy. He's not even a wholesaler no more. He wholesales for himself. He doesn't sell any deals, and he has so much private money that he's trying to get more deals because that's why he's a wholesaler. Wow. And I'm so proud of that guy. And just 2-3 years ago, that dude was broke, no money. Now he's doing a deal a month minimum, averaging 30. Wow. So I just called him earlier on my way over here. He said his goal is 300,000 this year. He's going to hit it.
Wow, that's incredible.
And and I'm not saying this, but I copied him. I'm like, yep. And I was frustrated because of the local RIA group wouldn't let me speak, wouldn't let me put my book out for free. I was like, let me get this straight. You think I'm competition because I'm trying to give away my book? Like, I seriously I brought 20 books and slapped them on the table. The chick went off on me. I was like, are you serious? Like, it costs me money to print this. I just want to spread the word. Like, I'm not selling. I got no coaching. I'm not trying to sell some program. Right. And I'm not trying to start a RIA. I'm just like, I'm blessed. I have obviously too much money to give away free books. That's one problem. I used to do this for the DJ company. I used to give away T-shirts all the time, and my mind was like, I really just wanted a T-shirt. But I would spend $500 a quarter, $2,000 until my mentor started slapping me. He's like, dude, you that's pure profit. You're giving away $2,000 a year in free T-shirts because I wanted a free T-shirt.
Right.
So I'm giving away books, and I'm like, I just want to, just read the book. It's so powerful. But no one reads. The chick banned me from. She's like, you can't do that. And I just stopped my membership this year. Wow. And I'm like, and I'm just broken. That was the best RIA, and now no one goes, and all the veterans don't go. It was so cool to talk to a guy that has like 200 units, and he just says, that guy that's how I met that guy. He's like, I got 500 units. I use wall heaters on all my non-HVAC houses. Sure. And because my floor furnaces were breaking all the time, and no one fixes floor furnaces in Oklahoma because it's just a old trade.
Yeah, antiquated unit or something.
Yeah, you can't trying to get under a house and try to fit in it, and the city gets off on you because it's a pilot light, and people are going to die with emissions. Sure. Every time I change the gas on a house, a tenant, they flag me for floor furnaces. And I was like, I got to get out of floor furnaces, like ASAP. And I met that guy, and he's just, rattled off. Oh, wall heaters. Thanks, buddy. Like, I never knew that.
The power of networking.
Yeah, the power of a RIA, and that's why I do the landlord lunch. Yep. And I can quantify that I have some good friends. It's cool that they show up. It's cool that new people not fly in, but come from other parts. Like this dude from Houston came last week. He just moved here, And the Houston RIA is incredible. They have a class every week.
Right, I've seen that.
Oklahoma City, we're hurting each other because you have a book and I don't want you to promote your book.
Sure, right.
And the other RIA is like, yeah, we like you. Now you are competition, Stephen. You realize that, yeah, but we embrace you because you're legit, and we know that you're doing it every day. We know you're buying and selling houses every day because you keep outbidding me. Yeah.
Absolutely.
But for years, you've been outbidding me, chumps. It's my turn.
Awesome. I got a couple more questions.
Sure.
We already kind of talked about the best way for people to contact you, right?
Right on.
The website. Give me an example of the best deal you've done. I want to hear the best deal. You do this to your people. I want to hear I want to hear yours.
Okay, so there's two. I just want to cover one until I close on the other. Okay. So I try to be, and I don't want to say this to be like I'm better than these charlatans out there. I mean, I try to do what I say I do. Like I taught a private money class once, and I didn't do any private money. And I mean, I have not borrowed it, I haven't loaned it, and I was like, holy shit, I'm about to do a private money class because I have this dude coming and speaking. He raised $6 million, and I asked him to speak, but I'm about to stand on stage and say, hey, introducing this private money guy. Well, I need to do a private money deal. And so I raised private money. So it's hard for me to do stuff. So to talk about it, so I really wanted to do a subject to deal. And it's creative financing, and I was real close one time, and this lady called me.
Tell everyone what subject to is, in case they don't know.
Okay, a subject to is where you take over a property, a subject to existing mortgage. So they have a loan on it.
Right.
There's probably no equity in it, and they're about to get foreclosed on usually, and they basically give you the house for free. Mm-hmm. Of course, you read about it, and you're like, no way, that never happens. Every course, Ron LeGrand and Brown guy, you're like, yeah, whatever. And so, and I was very close because they're trusting you to take over payments. Like you can burn them, and a couple of my mentors, they have about 8 of them. One guy has 8. In Kansas City, it was huge. They passed laws against it because you could really burn somebody.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So I've always wanted to do a subject too. So this gal calls me. I have actually, she has a bunch of assets. Her husband was in real estate, and her last property, it was a duplex in the front and a garage apartment that I thought was finished. When she told me it wasn't, it was storage. So she said, she wanted $100,000 for it. And so next door, the house, it's in the middle of the city. Next door, the house is worth $350,000. Now when I did my comps on that property, let's call it Didymer. The house is on Didymer Street. And I was like, it's only worth $125,000 because it was a converted duplex. So it had 1 meter, It had a well, but it was in the city. It was an awkward property, and the garage wasn't finished. And I was like, dude. And the unit to the right was $438 a month. The chick has been there for almost 30 years.
Wow.
And the cool thing about her, she was reading the meter every month and charging the other tenants. But if that chick moved out, I'm screwed.
Right.
And then the second girl was paying $200 a month. She was the niece. Oh, okay. And the lady in the back was using it for storage for her medical supply company, which was it was huge. It's like 1,500 square foot garage. So I was like, she was charging $200. Now, the first 2 units, they're worth about $650 a piece, and the back was probably worth $400. But I couldn't kick out the 30-year-old tenant. She was handicapped, and I felt bad. The girl, the $200 one, she was getting over, and the lady in the back, I could probably juice her up.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to buy this for $120 because it wouldn't appraise because I do no money down deals now. I have to buy property at 75%. 70 is my number. 75, I'll do it. 80. It's only going to come in at 120. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I'm sorry, I can't buy it. And just talking to her, she was like, I just want $25,000 cash. For what? Well, I got this house for sale. I want to buy my dream house. Well, this lady's like 70 years old. You don't need no dream house at 70 years old. What's wrong with you? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, and she has a house debt free, but she can't sell it because she has it overpriced. Well, that's your problem.
Right.
So she can't sell her house that she's in. She wants to buy this new crib. And she only needs $25,000 net. And I said, okay. I said, what do you owe on the mortgage? She owes $75,000. I said, how about this? What if I give you $25,000 cash? I take over your mortgage. How much is your payment? $468 a month. Okay, well, it cash flows with the old lady at $468 with the or four something, and the girl $200. That's $600. The girl, so the property brings in about $868 a month. Hey, I'm going to cash flow $200, but I got to put down $25,000.
Sure.
And with a subject to, I've got to deed it into a trust, because if you take it over by title, it'll accelerate it.
Right.
But I read her docs, and her doc says that this is an assumable loan. So I call the bank, and I'm like, hey, I want to assume this loan. Yeah, you can assume it with 30% down. Well, idiot, I can go get a freaking loan for 30% down. So I said, fuck you, see you later. So I was like, listen, I can't. This girl was desperate. She's like, I'm done being a landlord. I'm 70 years old. I want to buy my dream crib. I'm like, I hope and pray that I'm never like this. Here's the deal. This is all you get. $25,000 cash. I take over payment. She said yes. I said, oh no. So this is really going to go down.
Right.
So I call my homie in Nashville. I'm like, or Tennessee. I was like, I need subject to docs, and I need trust docs. He's like, okay. So he sends me docs. I trade with him. I give him some of my docs. We're homies. We trade. We're cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
So now I got to come up with 25,000. Now, I have 25, but I don't want to give out 25, and I for sure don't want to pay an attorney. So I partner with an attorney. I say, look, I got this asset, and here's the caveat. The next door neighbor wants to buy the asset for $150. So that's what the old lady told me when she sold it to me. And I was like, well, why don't you sell it to them? Well, they can't buy it because they have property that they're trying to sell.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, okay, I'll do this acquisition. I'll have 100 in it, and then I'll get 50. So I called my friend. She's an attorney. She's amazing. She's like, I'll do it. I'll do the trust. We'll do it 50-50. Closing fees. So I showed up with $13,000. She showed up, and I went to a title company. Now, the subject to I did before, I was a table closing, but they showed up with all the cash, and so there was no subject to. So this is my first real subject to. And so my attorney friend, she pulls all the docs. Then she gets them done. She sends me the docs. I read the docs, and then the closing company says, hey, their attorney needs to read the docs. I was like, here we go. Another attorney. They're going to shut this deal down. That attorney approved my docs.
Awesome.
I'm fixing to sell these docs. Like, 2 attorneys just cleared Oklahoma trust docs.
Yeah, sure.
I can't believe it.
That's
so
incredible.
I'm like, this can't be happening. So I show up to closing with $13,000. She shows up at closing $13,000. We have a trust that we both own. Boom. Take over payment. Make 1 month of payments. I collect the $800 from the tenants. I pay the $460 something mortgage. Everything's rolling. Everything's great. This is a month ago. I'm like, fat boy, Steven, you got to knock on the next door neighbor. So when I was at closing, the older lady that I bought it from, she gave me the next door neighbor's phone number. So I'm going to call this chick after I close, because I don't want to call her before. I'm like, this is going to be the best podcast ever. I call the phone number, disconnected. I'm like, man, all right, we got this asset. I'm going to hold on to it. I'm going to sell this thing. Well, now I'm like, Steven, it's been a month. I have not driven over there to that property. And the tenants are calling. I raised the rent on the tenants. They're all upset with me. I'm like, except for the old lady, the 30-year-old lady, because I have a soft spot for her. Plus, she's running my meter. So let's leave that alone.
Right.
So let's not shake the tree. Let's not be greedy. But hey, chick, you're paying $200 a month. You getting over.
Right.
So I'm like, I put on my calendar, go by and get this girl's phone number. Go for like 2-3 weeks, click by. I was like, screw it. I got this mentor. This kid wants me to mentor him. He wants to roll with me. Okay. So I pick a day. We driving around. I'm like, let's go buy this crib. I knock on this girl's door. Lady opens the door. Is your name Erica? Yeah. I own the house next door. I'm selling it. I'm about to put it on the MLS. And here's my motivation. I have this deal in Florida that I have to put down money on. One thing I learned about buying outside of your zone is that anyone will loan you money with 25% down. Wow. No one told me that. Well, that's the truth. Everyone always yells at me, how do you get no money down deals? Well, because I buy right. But if you want to get in the game and you listen to some real gurus, you got to put some money down. Well, the true real estate investor doesn't want to put money down. That's me. That's you. That's what we want to do. So I was like, I need to come up with some cash in 60 days to close this big deal in Florida. And I was like, man, I got to sell this property. I got $13,000 tied up in it. If I just make another $5,000, I'm content. Like, seriously. So I'm motivated. I'm going to put this mother on the MLS like today. So I drove over there. I knock on the door. Hey, I'm just going to give you a heads up. I'm selling this thing. Before I put a sign out front, I'm going to give you the opportunity. She looks at me like I'm some psycho. I'm like, this is the deal. I this is like dating somebody. I didn't get her phone number. So I gave her my phone number. I'm like, damn it. I need to drive back over there. But I'm like, the girl calls me the next day. And I tell her, she asked me how much it's for sale for. I say, I knew that the old lady that sold me the property, that they threw out $150. So, of course, people negotiate. I said $159.
Yep.
So she calls me. Yes, this happened on Saturday. She calls me $105. I said, chick, listen, no. She's like, I saw you on the county that you paid $100 for it. I said, hey, girl, I got more than $100 in it. Okay, so let's just start there. I got time, holding costs. No. Talk to you later. Click. Now, just so you know, I just want to say this. My wife's Hispanic, so this lady was Hispanic. So if you know about negotiating with Hispanics, this is where this rolls. And I knew this, okay? I know they live in a $350,000 house. I know they got about 8 people living in that house. So, because there were 7 cars out front. And I know that this house next door would be the most amazing compound because now they'll have 2 acres. Right. And now they'll have 3 units. And I know Hispanic people are super savvy. So I go, no. She calls me back 15 minutes later. I threw out one. I don't remember where it went. She was like 110 or something, 115. I said, girl, listen, 140. I hang up on her again. She calls me back. We go for the whole Saturday. I'm negotiating with this chick, back and forth calls. Right. And we finally landed on, my lowest offer is 130. And she's like, I can close Tuesday. And I don't want to close with a title company. I said, hey, girl, you kind of want to close with a title company. Like, I could just take your money and run. We settle on 128.
I like it.
So I close tomorrow at 1:00.
Awesome. You're gonna make you're gonna double your money on that one.
Yeah. So I'm gonna split it with my partner. I mean, sure. I'll make, because I forgot to tell you, my back tenant was so upset with me that I raised her rent that she came in here crying. What if I prepay 6 months? Would you not raise me? Yeah, absolutely. So I took that girl's $1,200 like a couple of weeks ago, but I got to refund it back to these Hispanic folks.
Yeah, sure.
So I think they're going to show up with like 127. I'll probably net like 13. I'll get my 13 back.
Yep.
I'll have 26, and I'm like, I don't know if you believe in Jesus, but
yeah,
I needed that $25,000 to close this other deal.
That's awesome.
And so that is my
place
best.
In Florida.
You got to get a rental property in Florida because I'm telling you, Florida's going to pop off. Yes. I know this. And anyway, long story short, that is one of my best deals because I did it subject to. Now I know how to do subject to, so I'm confident. If a lady asks me, because when I first did my very first subject to, she asked me, and I learned from a great friend, Thomas Morgan, full disclosure. Like, I'm full disclosure. Like, there's no, like, I'm trying to make money off of you. Hey,
no smoke and mirrors. Yeah.
Yeah, let's just look. I want you to buy my $5 audio. I think $5 is the deal. Now, I could price it for $300 and some dummy will buy it. But $5, everyone should buy it. But they're dumb. They don't spend the $5. So that's why you're successful and they're not. I want to be upfront. The lady asks me, have you done a subject to before? No, I haven't, ma'am. But now I can. And that's why I'm trying to loan out private money right now. So when I call you up in 6 years, when you're worth, $3 million, I'm going to be like, bro, can I borrow 50? I can say I have loaned and I have borrowed.
Absolutely.
Because I've borrowed. I've done a private money deal, close one.
Awesome.
Because I didn't want to be a hypocrite to that class. Because one day, Rich Dad Poor Dad, he's scrutinized all the time. I feel sorry for that guy. They beat that dude up like a pulp. Of course. But, who cares if the Rich Dad's fake? Who gives a rip?
Right.
I know he owns apartments because he owns an apartment in Tulsa. He owns a skyrise in Tulsa. I know this.
Wow.
And so he does own property. Now, maybe it's embellished. Maybe it's not. But let me tell you something. I'm wealthy because of that book. F everybody else. Stop beating the dude up. He got sued by his co-writer. Yes, Sharon Lecter is legit. I like her. I met her. I met them both back in the 90s, when I met them. And they were legit. They had their courses are kind of outrageous. Yeah, people are getting jacked. Well, you're dumb for putting out your credit card. No one held a gun to your head to say, give me $48,000 and I'll coach you. And it's not even Rich Dad Poor Dad. He doesn't even own that brand. He owns the brand, but he licensed that brand out. No one knows that.
Right.
But hey, let's attack Rich Dad Poor Dad. But I love the real person that can grasp concept, that take responsibility. The guy motivated me, and I'm thankful.
Millions of people.
Yeah, serious. It's cool.
Millions of people.
It's just cool to know that people have benefited from his labor, and I hope and pray that, and that's why I wrote my book, like, for real. Like, I read every real estate book I could get my hands on. I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and when I sat down and said, when I sold my bridal company, I said, what's my dream? What do I want to do? My dream was to write a book since I was a child, but I never knew that it would be a credibility kit until 7-10 years ago. So then I was like, I'm going to write the very best effing book in the world, that this guy did it, and I'm going to document it, and I'm going to put addresses on it. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I wrote the book, and the editor came back to me, and he was like, hey, you sure you want these addresses in here? Don't you want to change? And I changed some names because there's some people I blast in there. Like, for real.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah, because I got bent over, like, from realtors, like, for real. Like, someone stole deals from me. It's just crazy what's out there. And I'm glad you need to know that. Because this is not a fun game. This is not everybody's all integrity. There's shady people out there doing subject twos. There's shady people locking up contracts intentionally to go back and renegotiate because he locks up that contract. A wholesaler locks up that contract from an older lady and then comes back 6 weeks later and says, I can't close because it's too high. Right. And the lady takes a dive and she's like spent that money 10 times in her head. Right. I just think that's just shady. Right. Like, close. Like, when I lock up a contract, I want to close it.
Absolutely.
Totally
makes sense.
If I can't flip it, that's why I offer low, and that's why I don't get deals. But shoot, if you're going to sell me that house for $10,000, I'm going to lock it up.
Right. Absolutely. No, you're doing it right. That's how you got to run your business. And I think everyone who's listening can really take what you're saying to heart about. There are a lot of people out there. You got to be leery. You got to have that sense about you that there's going to be somebody that could potentially be ripping you off. So use your head, be smart about it, but you also got to pay that forward. Do the right thing.
Yeah, and listen to your radio show. I'm so excited that you're doing it because we have a lot of similarities, personality.
More than you know. It's creepy, actually.
Yeah, we actually almost look together. Well, I'm looking at your freaking face. I'm like, I actually, back in the day, I'm not gay, but back in the day, a space in your tooth was actually sexy.
Yeah, no, that's why I keep it.
No, I'm serious.
There's still people that like it. You just
there is. I'm not trying to call you out, but I remember because my friend had a space in his tooth and he had a rubber band on it. Like, he was so insecure about his I had jacked up teeth. I got braces, and later in life, which was the society, that was if I could tell you about a regret, put that down on your next person you interview. What regrets do you have? Sure. I wish I would have got my teeth fixed because I had it looked like every photo looked like it was a shadow, and it looked like I was missing a tooth, so I never would smile. And it's $4,000 to get braces done, 15, 20 years ago. Man, I wish I would have did it earlier.
Yeah.
But we look alike. It's freaky. That's why I'm growing my hair out.
So that was going to be my last question to you is besides your wife, are we like best friends now?
Yeah, we're BFF, homie.
All right, that's awesome. I love it. All right, man, that's all I got for you today. I totally appreciate you taking the time. We've been on the call here for about 2 hours. It's awesome. A lot of good information all about Steven VanCauwenbergh out of Oklahoma City. And if you want to contact him or listen to his podcast, you go to
thesavvyradioshow.com. That's savvyradioshow.com.
Awesome. Steven, thank you. I'll see you soon.
All right, bud. Take care, man.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Investor Empowerment Series radio show. Be sure to tune in next week for another empowering episode. We welcome your feedback, so please rate us on iTunes and Stitcher. And visit us at www.investorempowermentchicago.com or tennisgrouprealty.com.